So moving on through our agenda, I've been thinking a lot about how I wanted to introduce Nathan Beard and the work he does with people here locally around employment. And in full disclosure, Community Justice contracts with Nathan to work with the people who are on supervision to help them both become more job ready, but then identify employment opportunities, support them through the interview process, and give them tips on how to maintain that employment. And there's a lot I could say about Nathan. I've worked with him probably almost coming on 20 years now. But the quickest way to do it, to save us all time, is just, I wish I was as good at my job as Nathan is at his. He's the most thorough professional I know. And he's really good with the clients, good with the employers, great with the people who are trying to work with him. So Nathan, that's your introduction. No pressure, but yeah.
Thanks, Eric. That was really nice. So thank you, everybody, for having me here. I tried to, well, I guess I want to start by saying I got into working with clients, really cut my teeth, I guess, so to speak, at the transition center. So I've been privileged to get to know and build a rapport with a lot of the clients by doing drug tests, serving them dinner, doing medication call, being in the dorms with them at the Community Justice Transition Center. So along the way, on a couple of my shifts, I used to work there a few nights a week in the evenings. I started making resumes for people. I got people that I would know or build a rapport with would say, hey, Nathan, can you make my resume for me? And so that was when I first started thinking about employment for clients. And it turned into having a database of 10 to 15 resumes where clients would come in and out of incarceration or doing community service at the transition center. And I would update the resumes, I would print them, and then I would start looking for jobs for them. And then eventually we had a jobs class or a job search class there. And then fast forward, I don't want to go on too long about it, but I ended up working out of the probation office, seeing clients in open office hours. And eventually I started working with DHS, vocational rehab, and I got a contract with them. So I had to start a company, and I called it Cutting Edge Job Development, just to have a name. And then I started contracting back with the Community Justice Department. And that's what I'm here to talk about today, just to show you guys what's available to clients that are, justice involved or justice system impacted or whatever you want to call it. Clients that are looking for work, that have criminal history, have commitments in recovery, probation. So basically when I'm available at the probation office is 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., Tuesday and Thursday in person. Currently I'm in the corner lobby office, but that may change. I may be working out of the resource center, if you're familiar with that, at the probation office. But those are the days I'm available in person. And you'll notice that it says remote assistance. So I also take calls, emails, texts from staff at the probation office or any community justice entity or other local entities, and then from clients. So if people have my card, I can assist clients when I'm not at the office as well. So who's eligible? So if it's with community justice, people on probation, people in recovery, people are participating in the specialty courts, maybe they're living at the transition center, maybe they're just going to see the DUI coordinator, they're on bench probation, federal clients to get out, state clients. So I just relieved, somebody might be living in a hotel and they might call me and say, hey, I have this hotel room for 30 days, but I need a job. Are they couch surfing? Somehow they're in need of a job and they're in the system. Sometimes I just see people that return. I've already made a resume, and I just want to point that out. So part of what I do for the Community Justice Department is I maintain a database of employers, but also the resource center staff and anyone that has access to the hard drive at the county community justice. There are about 700 resumes on file. So there's a lot of clients that have resumes that might just come back and say, hey, I'm getting a new job. Can you update my resume? So if you're working with clients through your entities and they happen to be on probation, there's a good chance, if they've looked for work, that we've made the resume before. So sometimes I just see people, they come in, they're not quite ready to go to work. Maybe they don't have the confidence. Maybe they have to take care of some treatment first. They have to focus on the custody of their children, getting other things aligned. So maybe we just give them a business card or give them a copy of the Getting a Job on the Outs booklet, and then they might come back another time. So services offered to clients. Now there's all sorts of things, but a few that I thought of. So I find it supportive to have open office hours. So I call it an open office meeting. So if a client comes in to check in at the probation office, I'm there 9 to 2. I find it helps build rapport and eases their anxiety a bit if there's no appointment. There's nothing wrong with appointments. If a client or someone wants to refer a client to me, say, hey, can you set up a 10 o'clock time for this Tuesday or Thursday? That's great. But I find that I catch clients sitting in the lobby and just kind of walk back and forth and say, hey, you want to come on in? I can help you find a job. I can make your resume, or you can just have my card when you're looking for work. So I find having drop-in availability helps. And so when I meet with a client, oftentimes we'll make a resume, update a resume, help them email the resume, print the resume, whatever it is. Or if they happen to be somebody I know pretty well or have worked with for a couple of years, I have contacts with all sorts of employers where I could email their resume directly to a hiring manager and say, hey, this person's doing really well. I'm never going to say, yeah, this is going to be a great employee, because I can't guarantee that, but I can speak to the fact that they've had a long time clean and sober, they're very focused and motivated, and that I've known them for a while. So that really helps, because sometimes that just gets someone a job. What's available here is exclusive job leads, meaning that there's a database I help maintain for the Community Justice Department. And I'll give you guys some examples of those. There's about 250 companies where I keep track of like their background check policies, drug test policies, which bus route to get to the businesses. Sometimes a new client email address might be something that we do when they drop in. A lot of the people I work with and people that aren't in the system at all have really strange email addresses that look bad on resumes. So oftentimes I'll just make a new email address, and that can be huge though, because we can say, hey, this is your official professional job search email address. You don't hook up to any of your other accounts with it. So then it's a clean address they can use that helps. Sometimes you just give out a booklet, give them a copy of Getting a Job on the Outs, because as you'll see in some of the examples, a lot of the stuff available that I can do in person is in this booklet. Like there's a resume template, there's a cover letter template, there's advice on how to talk about criminal history with employers. We'll go through some of that. We do mock interviews. Somebody might have an interview coming up and they'll say, hey, Nathan, can we do an interview real quick? And that could be on the phone, could be in person, and I'll role play and be the employer. And I'll ask them questions to lead them to talk about their criminal history, because that's something with most jobs they're going to have to disclose. They might not have to say it on an application, but they're going to have to do it. So we'll kind of go over a spiel, how best to do that, depending on the employer too, because certain employers, they can be more or less open about it. They'll be asked to be more or less open. I do 5 donations a month of a food handler's card. So if somebody needs a food handler's card, they need a new certification to put on their resume. Well, I pay for it and help them do the food handler's card test. It's good for 3 years. It's a brand new, official certification they can use. It makes them feel good. It looks good on their resume, and it might, help them get a job. Job retention. So this one is like something I've been tracking the past 5 or 6 months, and I'm trying to do it every week or every 2 weeks anyway, is where job retention in vocational rehab means they're keeping their job. And I guess that's what it means in any format. But I try to call community justice clients and say, hey, how's your job going? Or if they give me a text number or an email, just shoot them an email. Hey, Melissa, how's your job? And they'll text back, oh, it's going great. And it's such a simple little thing, but it really boosts their confidence. It makes them feel good. And it makes me feel good. Just like, hey, we didn't just get them a job and never talk to them again. Keeping track, like, how's it going? How are you being treated? Does this job work? Is it conducive to being on probation and having other commitments? Like, can you work a part-time schedule and like once in a while get 2 hours off to go check in at court? Those things are really important, and I try to track all of those. All right, so I want to give a few examples of remote employment assistance, and I don't even know if it's remote. It just means not at the office. So here's some examples. JCCJ, community justice client, calls me to ask for verified job leads. I get their email address, send them some job leads, and these include the company name, the address, the telephone number, the job title, the wages, the drug test policy, background check policy, which is a big one. And instructions on where they should apply, requirements that could mean like food handler's card, OLCC server's permit, it could mean button-up shirts, whatever the requirements are for the position. And then the RBTD bus route, because as you all probably know, transportation is a huge barrier. So another example could be a client texts me and they want a resume update. So I might text back and say, well, what do you need to update? and they tell me their most recent job. I update it, then I email back an updated copy, and I leave them a folder full of new resumes at the front desk at the probation office, or I deliver them. If I'm out and about, I can print them at my office and drop them off at their house. And that's really cool because it saves them an extra bus trip and might help them get through the day without taking a transfer bus that wasn't going to get them there on time. So let's see, client calls, they have an interview the next day. I guess that was the kind of example I just gave. So this guy needed a cover letter. And so I asked him about the details of everything, made the cover letter, and then I delivered it to them. And that made it so they could get to the interview on time or be ready for it the next day. So that's like when I'm not at the office on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Any other day of the week, I might be at voc rehab. I might be just working out of like the library or some place that has like a desk or something, because I meet clients in public places. So that is available, like delivery, that kind of thing. Let's see. So this was a client. Actually, this guy was in the TCP program a couple times ago, transitional care program at the transition center. He needed copies of his resume. He already had a job at Harry & David, and he had an interview the next day. So I delivered his resume over at the Rogue Retreat Apartments. There's other entities as well, but over on Crater Lake. And then he only takes the bus. He couldn't make it there that day. He had his kids at home. So I said, well, I'll just drop it off. So anyway, that just means those are just like some recent examples of where the clients can utilize my help without having to come to the probation office, which I don't promote that. Like I think it's good they come to the probation office, but if they can't make it twice a week, then I can come to them.
And now Tanya's question, it says, I have an old list of workplaces that hire people with felonies. I provide this list to syringe exchange clients that are looking for work. Do you have any updated list that can use, or does anyone? Since Tanya's clients are not clean, but still do look for work, it's nice to be able to provide them with that type of information.
It's a great question. Yeah. And it's basically the basis of my whole business is keeping track of profiles of employers. So yes, it is available. I don't give it out to everybody because how it works with employers is some of them don't care if I share their hiring practices. Others say, hey, we'll tell you about what criminal charges we're willing to hire people if they still have them on the record or which ones we're not. Like basically the ins and outs, the details of their background check policies. But yeah, I keep track. I don't call it a felon-friendly list. I don't like to call people felons, and I don't think they're actually felon-friendly. Most employers will hire somebody with a felony, but it depends on what type of felony. It depends on how long ago, and it depends on their interview too. So, and I think Stacy, right, or Tanya?
Yes.
Tanya asked that question.
Yes.
Yeah, Tanya.
I have an old list. If I could send you what I have, and
please do.
If it's accurate or there's a few we could add.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of our clients, again, they're not in they're not in a position to where you would help make a referral or stuff like that. But I definitely make referrals, especially when they let me know that they're looking for work and they're having a hard time. This is a list that I'm able to give them and at least hopefully give them a start.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to share some of them and just show you how I track it. And then I'll show you a couple examples here in just a minute. So, so here's an example of where they apply. Let's see, education requirements, things like that. And so basically, let's see, it'll show, they'll accept people with like a DUI charge. Violence and theft related charges might not work out. So Kroger, what they do, that's who owns Fred Meyer, they do a background check where they send it off to Kroger. And then a third party, I think it's called GSI, I can't remember, I talked to them the other day. I have to hunt them down through phone calls and just find out who are these people, what kind of background check are they doing? And so I had a client that I helped get a job at Fred Meyer, and he had been in prison in another state. He's no longer on probation, but I was working with him through DHS voc rehab. He got hired and they said, but if your background check comes back 2 weeks later and they tell us to fire you, we have to fire you. So that's not a good situation. So that's why I keep track of it, to try to find out, okay, will they hire somebody with an assault charge? Will they hire somebody with 17 possession charges? And if they won't, then I don't send them there, and I don't want to waste the company's time either. But anyhow, long story about that guy, but I'll shorten it. He got hired, worked there for 2 months, and then the background check came back and they said, Kroger said, oh, you need to let him go. and then he said, well, the local store said, well, we're just going to keep you anyway. We're going to ignore that. And so they kept him for another month, but then Kroger made them fire him. So that kind of thing will happen, and it's hard to get around that. But for the most part, I think I have like 250 of these, and they're up to date every time I send somebody there. And I'll know if it's going to happen or not. So I'll know, like, okay, does somebody use marijuana a lot? Can they still pass the drug test? Do they even do a drug test? Is it the kind of job where somebody cannot have been clean that long and still do well, or still, can they still get some hours in and do the job? And, is it not going to be too stressful? Things like that. So these, I could share some of them, but that's like, I track those for lots of different companies. And then we always put the bus routes. That's really helpful. Okay. Yeah. So basically that's the contact info. That's when I'm available at the probation office right now. I saw a lot of clients on Tuesday, a few more called today, so there'll be more coming Thursday. And I may end up being out of the resource center soon. Right now I'm in the corner lobby office past the front check-in windows, and I put a big sign up, and everybody can just knock on the door. Or if you have a client and they just, you want them to call while you're working with them and to set up another day, then we can make appointments too. So feel free either way, or through any medium is fine.
Well, Nathan, I really appreciate your time. And like I said, you've just really helped people transform their lives. And so many people have been able to count on you. Just amazing for our community. And
cool.
Especially helping break down barriers for people with substance use disorder as they start to enter recovery and re-enter our community. So thank you.